You're trying to be very smart here. You're trying to box me into a corner, but you won't be able to do that.
Sure.
Okay, my first major was philosophy and theology, and I have a PhD in political science. So try as much as you will. This isn't about the First Amendment. It's about anti-Semitism. Hate speech.
That's not protected first speech to be anti-Semitic?
Let me finish. Let me finish.
What's up, guys? Nuance Bro checking in. We're here at CPAC 2020 in Washington, D.C. Let's go talk to people, see what's going on. So why are we out here today?
Oh, we're enjoying freedom in the United States. This is the place to be, right here, right now. Definitely.
I see you have a shirt on, Fox and Friends #1. What?
Yep.
Steve, Ainsley, Brian, Janice, Jillian. You're a big fan of Fox and Friends?
We are. My son and I started my wife on it. Now we've created a monster. We can't turn the TV off of Fox. So I tried to watch the debate the other night. She wouldn't let me. I had to wait till she went to bed. So then I flipped over to Channel 4.
You guys were watching Fox?
Yeah, and
okay.
It was a joke. It was an absolute joke. It was unbelievable. But I'm enjoying it here. It's a great time. You know, we're around people who are like thinkers. Instead of being knocked down by, somebody who... I have red hats, naturally, all of us do, or shirts like this. Instead of being knocked down, we can walk around freely in here.
Because you live in an area where it's like...
I live up near Buffalo, New York. New York. We have Andrew Cuomo, largely Democrat because of New York City. But yes, there are. And my wife doesn't enjoy it when I wear a shirt that I like about President Trump or anybody who's conservative because she's afraid we'll be blasted wherever we go out. But around here, we don't care.
And what do you like about Fox and Friends more than a show like, let's say, Tucker Carlson, for example?
Do I like Tucker Carlson or other than that?
Well, it's a little bit of both. Like, what do you like about this show more than Tucker Carlson? And maybe, I guess, is implicit in that is, do you like Tucker Carlson?
Yeah, I do. I enjoy Tucker. And Tucker kind of hits directly to the point. The people in the morning have a good time, talk about a lot of things. It's kind of an enjoyable show first thing in the morning. Especially Brian Kilmeade, who happens to be down the row here. If you guys saw him, he's in one of the interviews.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
He's straight down.
To talk to him.
He's straight down. And he's funny. And, of course, they talk about things that are to the point, rather than spewing things, picking things, like the liberal news does. So.
And you mentioned you're a big fan of the president, is that right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And what do you support about President Trump's policies that he's enacted so far?
Well, I think the biggest thing about him, and a lot of people are talking about this, is he's made promises and he's kept them.
Sure, like which ones, for example?
Well, the big one is Jerusalem, moving Jerusalem, reinvigorating the military.
So you're a big fan of Israel, for example?
I'm sorry.
So you're a big fan of Israel?
Well, I am. I support Israel because I think they're a peacekeeping area in the Middle East.
How so?
Well, I noticed that they're a democracy, and if you listen to Benjamin Netanyahu's interview on Mark Levin the other night, he said that there are actually Muslim countries that are joining with him to try to come up with a peace settlement in the Middle East. I don't think we should all be fighting over that. I have nothing against Muslims or the Muslim countries, but I think we should all get along over there.
But is a democracy necessarily good, for example, in the Gaza Strip, in that area where they elected Hamas? That didn't really come out to a good... I mean, it doesn't seem like democracy just in itself necessarily brings about the best conditions for peacekeeping necessarily. In Israel, for example, they've done a lot of things where they've expanded into settlements in the West Bank against international law. Do you feel like that's helping peace or that's hurting peace?
Well, there's pros and cons about that. I can understand where Israel wants to keep a border where terrorist activity doesn't come in, but I also want to see the democracy allow anybody who wants to come in to come in.
Sure, but settlements is different from like creating a border. They're actually going into the area.
I agree with that.
And that was actually in violation of a lot of U.S. policy for the last few decades until Trump, who recently said, we're okay with you violating international law and establishing settlements.
I understand that. Yeah, I've been following that too, and it's kind of an iffy thing right there. So I do agree with you on that. The expansion shouldn't go on unless there's an agreement with it. And obviously, the Palestinians, Hamas, and everybody doesn't agree with it. So. Yeah.
What do you think about reports from Politico that said they found spy devices outside the White House where Israel was actually spying on the President of the United States?
Oh, really? I didn't hear that one. Yeah, that's interesting.
Do you think the media should cover something like that a little more?
I think the unfortunate part is I think everybody spies on everybody. So,
well, some have more aggressive spying campaigns than others. I think Israel is ranked something like third in the world after Russia and China as far as spying against the United States. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's interesting. Well, you know, I mean, it's a matter of who you trust. So I can see where it's not a good thing, but it goes on, unfortunately. So I guess we have to kind of be vigilant about all of that stuff. So, yeah, unfortunately.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No. It's interesting. You told me a couple of things I didn't know.
Oh, I could tell you a lot more if you wanted to.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you.
So why are we out here today?
I'm here to support conservative movement, and I'm here on behalf of Turning Point USA. So I'm a student activist in my college.
Oh, very cool. And I see you have a Keep America Great hat on. Do you support the president?
Of course, yes.
And why do you support the president?
I mean, he's been doing everything I thought he was going to do. I was pretty wary at first. I went down the line from Marco Rubio to Ted Cruz and didn't really know if he was going to be an actual conservative, and seeing everything that he's done with the economy, the low unemployment levels, he's got a check mark in my book.
Sure. Were you ever a never Trumper?
I wouldn't say no never Trumper. I didn't really laugh at him and, kind of make fun of him for running, thinking he was a joke like everyone else did in the media. I definitely saw him as a serious candidate, but no, I would never say I hated him, didn't want him to get office or anything like that.
So you mentioned good economy, low unemployment, but what actual policies do you feel like he's done that you support?
I like his foreign policy. I like everything that he's doing, trying to get the troops out of Afghanistan, trying to get the troops out of Syria.
So you're like an anti-interventionist?
Yes.
What do you think about him ramping up things like drone attacks and increasing civilian casualties, and actually putting more troops in the Middle East in certain places, like putting 2,000 troops into Saudi Arabia, and maybe even sort of giving more tacit support to the thing going on in Yemen and all the things like that?
I mean, I think you're always going to have some kind of intervention. I think being a total non-interventionist, that's not kind of feasible. I think we're always going to have some kind of presence in the Middle East, but I think Trump's doing what he can to scale it back. In terms of the drone strikes, I'm not sure of what you're mentioning there or what you're referencing to there, but I don't think he's increasing the potential for casualties. I think
the casualties have increased significantly. I think even in the first, the first year, they increased by the drone strikes, I think increased by 426%, something crazy like that.
Yeah, I haven't heard those numbers or seen those numbers, so I couldn't really comment on that.
And any other policies that you support that he's done?
Again, just the low unemployment, the jobs. I mean,
it's not really is there a specific policy that he's done?
Nothing that I can think off the top of my head, but I think that's about it. So.
And as far as Turning Point USA, why is that an organization that you support?
It's basically a student activist organization. I like that they're trying to get freedom of speech going on throughout the public campuses. I think that's a big problem, especially in the University of Wisconsin-Madison, University of Milwaukee. I think my college is doing pretty well. I'd say the split between Democrats and Republicans is kind of 50-50. But like I said, with University of Madison, it's
not bad for a university.
Yeah, no, it's not bad at all. And I do appreciate my university for allowing public speakers. I think, who was there? I think Charlie Kirk might have been there. I know he's going to be in Madison this March, I believe. We'll see how that goes. He always gets booed off the stage. So
he always gets booed out. You're talking about the recent Groyper wars and stuff?
Yeah, Ben Shapiro was there, and yeah, they kind of linked arms and stuff and protested.
Oh, you mean from the left?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so you feel like you mentioned free speech. Is free speech a very big issue for you?
Yeah.
First Amendment, you believe in that?
Going back to the policies, yeah. I think Trump signed the executive order to make sure that public schools, make sure that free speech is available on public campuses. And that I think he said that in that executive order, if they don't let the free speech roam in public campuses, that they won't get federal funding. I definitely would support that policy.
I think he also did one about anti-Semitism as well, which you could say actually kind of might go against free speech as well. Do you support that action?
I did support that.
Even if it's against free speech?
How would it be against free speech?
By banning anti-Semitism. Aren't you allowed to be racist under the First Amendment?
I guess hate speech is kind of allowed.
Isn't that what we always when you see those people who come out and they say hate speech isn't free speech? Isn't Charlie Kirk always the one who says no, it is free speech and it's protected under the First Amendment? Supreme Court has said that multiple times.
Mm-hmm. I guess I would say it is free speech. I mean, again, like I said, I am for free speech. I would never say, okay, hey, you can't say that, you can't do this. Obviously, you got the freedom under the First Amendment to say whatever it is that you want to say. I would frown upon it, obviously. Those aren't my views. I think anybody, no matter which way or which place on the spectrum you're at, you should be able to say what you want to speak and speak it freely.
A few moments later.
Can I use the restroom really quick?
Yeah, sure. I feel like he's going to use it and probably not talk to us, but we'll see. We'll wait right outside.
A few moments later.
Who are you with?
What's that?
Who are you with?
Nuance Pro Media.
I don't know what that is, so you're gonna have to.
So is that a no?
Andrew's calling. Yeah, we have something scheduled right now.
All right, I can do it after the schedule if you want to do that.
Yeah, I just have to
Cool.
check it out.
We'll wait, no
Okay.
problem. All right.
A few moments later.
Charlie, so you'd like to do an interview?
Talk to Andrew. Yeah. Andrew, can you find out if we're gonna talk to them?
Yeah, right now we're just en route to
All right. So
booth. One real quick sec.
Sure, how about after that one then?
We can't. We're booked up in the next two. This
find out
morning
who they
is
are,
not.
and we'll find out if we're gonna do
This morning is all booked up. So.
Okay.
Because
How about tomorrow?
he's not here tomorrow. Maybe this evening. What's your?
Nuance Pro Media.
What is it?
Nuance Pro Media.
Awesome.
I think he is giving a grace to a people who, in my opinion, scarcely deserve it because they have chosen to put themselves in a position by voting monolithically Democrat and thus destroying, their community and destroying, their upward mobility and any chance of that. But you have a president that has said, well, yes, you guys put yourself in the position by buying the lie of the left, but I'm going to give you a little bit of grace.
You think that's the downfall of the black community?
I really do believe
it's just voting Democrat?
100%.
Really?
If you look at our history, if you look at the history of black people, we were originally conservative. We were originally Republican. If you look at the history, no, that is a bunch of lies. They never switched. No.
What was the Southern strategy by the Republican Party?
A lie.
So why are we out here today?
We're out here to basically tell the world about our conservative movement, how important freedom is in America, and how to protect that freedom, as the Democrats are slowly trying to take that away from us day by day.
What are some of those freedoms?
Freedom of speech is probably one of the biggest factors right now, especially on college campuses, out in the workplace, stores, anywhere, just displaying our conservative values. We get made fun of for it, beat up for it. People get run over by cars for just supporting the president. So.
And how do you feel like the Democratic Party or the politicians in Congress are trying to take that away from us?
They are definitely using abuse of power in Congress. We saw that with impeachment with Donald Trump. There's multiple facets that they basically bypassed in the Constitution to try and convict the president.
Sure, but I mean, like free speech-wise, because that's impeachment. That's obviously in the Constitution. But like free speech-wise or freedom-wise, how do you feel like they're trying to infringe on those rights?
They're basically not letting us display who we vote for or who we support. Conservative.
In Congress, like in House of.
You mean like in Congress or the freedom of speech?
Like the Democrats in Congress, like how are they doing that exactly?
Oh, how are they doing that? They're trying to suppress it. They're trying to pass laws that basically limit what we can say, what we can do.
Sure, like which laws in particular?
Let's say social media, for example. Our Twitter accounts get blocked for just tweeting something about the president.
But that's not Congress doing that. That's obviously private corporations.
That too.
Sure. So, do you feel like big tech censorship is like a bigger issue than what they're doing in Congress right now?
That's probably one of the biggest issues. Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, Twitter.
Sure. And what do you feel like we should do about that?
That's a hard question, because if you regulate it, then you obviously break the Constitution about freedom of speech.
How does that break the Constitution?
We're supposed to have freedom of speech, so we can't regulate it. But then...
What do you mean? Like freedom of speech for us, but like why does it matter for these? If that's the new public square, like we obviously have the free speech was supposed to like protect us saying what we want in the public square. If they're the public square now and we give them special benefits like under the the Decency and Communications Act, all that stuff, we give them special protections, yet they abuse that by trying to censor some political views and push up others. Why would it break the First Amendment for us to regulate those companies?
Oh, I meant regulate like in what we're putting out on social media. Not the company itself, but like us.
So I'm saying, what should we do about what big tech is doing right now to censor people? What should we do about that? Like, should we enact certain policies, and if so,
we
what?
Definitely need to enact a media policy, especially on Facebook, Twitter. I think Facebook's more of the bigger issue right now. It's one of the bigger platforms, more so than Twitter. Put out a policy. Liberals, conservatives,
what would you like to see specifically like in that policy? Like what do you think exactly like a law could do to stop that big tech censorship?
We could enact... It's a good question. It's hard to think about.
Sure. I think it's something definitely important.
Thought about it really in depth, but we definitely need to do something. Now that's something, I'm not exactly sure what, but something needs to be done.
Do you feel like President Trump hasn't done enough against big tech censorship?
I think he's doing his best what he can do right now with what he can deal with what's in the House, because the Democrats control the House right now. He signed that Freedom of Speech Act a month or two ago.
He signed, I think there was a college campus free speech executive order.
Yeah.
They haven't done any enforcement on it so
done it
far,
yet.
for which I don't know why.
Wonder why.
But they also did another. He also did another executive order, which I believe was related to anti-Semitism on college campuses, which is kind of weird because it kind of goes against the idea of free speech. Like, aren't you allowed to be anti-Semitic under the First Amendment? Isn't hate speech protected?
Yes, because freedom, it's a form of speech.
So what do you think about that executive order that he put into place?
I have mixed feelings on it, because like you just mentioned, freedom of speech, they can take it, they can flip it on us, say, well, you're advocating for free speech, that you're limiting us, opposing what you're saying.
So why are we out here today?
I'm out here because I came to support conservative values, and I actually love CPAC. It's a pretty cool event. Get to mingle and get contacts and things of that nature, meet new people, and just to let you know that you're not alone in this political fight.
So what are some of those conservative values?
Pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, things of that nature.
And are you a fan of the president?
Yes, I am.
Do you feel like he's done a good job upholding these conservative values?
I do. I think he's made promises and he also have kept them, which is great because a lot of people don't do that, whether it's political or non-political, so that's a one-up for him.
Sure. What are some of those promises?
He promised that he would bring back the jobs, which he did, and Obama was like, well, you're going to have to need a magical wand.
Through what policies do you feel like he achieved that?
I think that he's good at negotiating and he's good at getting things done the way they're supposed to be done. He says he's a great businessman also, which he implicates that when he's running America, and I feel like that's a pretty good aspect to look from.
Sure, but is there like a specific policy that you feel like he's enacted that's led to some of this growth? Or
not necessarily. I think it's just his strategy. It's not actually a policy that brings back jobs, because there isn't anything that says, oh, you have to do this in order to get a job. Like, there's just plenty of jobs out there. You just have to want to go out there and get one. And a lot of people are maybe upset because he's cut back on like food stamps and things of that nature, but that would encourage you to go get a job. So yeah, maybe his cutback on food stamps for able bodies.
So cutting back on food stamps help the economy to create jobs and things like that?
I mean, if you are, a lot of people use food stamps as like I'm trying to think of the word to use. They just use it as a crutch. They use food stamps as a crutch. I mean, if you have to use it and you're struggling, okay, cool. But a lot of people use it as, they make it as a cycle where they just live off of it, you know?
And you mentioned Trump. You mentioned Trump as a businessman. You feel like he runs the country like kind of like a business, like he did his business. In a business, you have to obviously, account for budgets and things like that. What do you think about the budget deficit and how it's increased dramatically under Donald Trump to over $1 trillion?
I mean, I feel like it was already pretty high. I mean,
he's made it a lot higher.
Of course, because he has to do things that the presidents before him weren't really doing. He's cracking down, and if that costs money, then it costs money. But at least he's putting the money where it can help the people. Before, people were putting in money, but it wasn't really helping us. They were sending it to other countries and things like that.
He's still sending money to other countries. I know he's still
sending it to other countries, but I'm saying Americans are benefiting more because of Donald Trump. Before, that wasn't happening.
And do you feel like him, when he cuts taxes but he doesn't make subsequent cuts in other programs to, balance the budget, do you feel like that's a bad thing that we could maybe fix?
I believe that maybe he's having certain aspects are more of a priority at the moment. Not to say that anything is less important, but at the moment, certain cuts may be necessary. But in due time, maybe we'll see.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Trump 2020.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And I see where we have this backdrop here. How do you say this? Chofeve Zion?
Chofeve Zion. Yeah. Congratulations.
So with respect to Israel policy, you say you're very pro-Israel yourself. Do you feel, and you also say you're very pro-American, you try to tie these two together. Do you feel like those values ever come into conflict with one another?
Well, Obama made it into conflict. Obama he was on Israel's case all the time, and him and Bibi got elected roughly the same year, a couple of months difference. In fact, Bibi had Obama campaign people that worked on Obama's campaign that got work on Bibi's campaign. So there was some hope that there's potential that they're going to work together. But Obama was left-leaning and Bibi was right-leaning. There was no secret about that. So Israel and America were clashing on an Iran deal, on settlement freezes of the quote-unquote settlements in Israel.
Well, for example, the settlements, for example, that's been a long-established position of the United States. No new settlements in the West Bank. It's been like that internationally recognized international law. Yet you have people like Bibi Netanyahu trying to expand the settlements, and now under Trump, it's like accepted as well. But hasn't there always sort of been that conflict there?
Well, yeah. And can I ask you a question? If Arabs can live in Israel, why can't Jews live on Palestinian land?
Well, there's a difference. Like right now, if all the people from the Gaza Strip wanted to become Israelis, would they allow that?
You probably know the answer to that, and the answer is no.
Okay, or any other kind of Arab, if they wanted to immigrate to Israel and become an Israeli citizen, would they allow that?
Well, why do we need more Arabs from Gaza and from the West Bank to become Israeli citizens? There's already 1 million Arabs already that are even more than 1 million.
I'm not saying why you need it, but I'm saying Israel also won't accept non-Jewish Arabs, for example, coming into their country like newly, just like the other countries won't accept Jews in those areas as well.
Because we're the one and only Jewish state. There are 50 Muslim-run states, and can't we just, for the love of God, have one Jewish state? We're not asking for 2, we're not asking for 3, we're just asking for 1. Just 1.
So, like when we talk about the conflict between like sort of American values or policies and Israeli values and policies, do you see it like when, for example, when Israel has spied on America many times before, they've sent people like Jonathan Pollard over as these sort of operatives. Do you feel like that?
Oh, no, I got to stop you there. They did not send him.
Well, he was already there.
He volunteered.
Sure. It's even worse. It's even worse. He betrayed his own country for Israel. Yeah.
Look. I can talk about Jonathan Pollard a whole lot.
Are you a fan of Jonathan Pollard?
Not a fan, but I'm not exactly anti.
You're supportive of Jonathan and what he did.
No. Again, he felt he needed to do it. And I can give you what he gives his reason why. He had. You know that they were developing a nuclear reactor in Iraq, and in Iraq. This is before. No. This is not Bush's chemical mass destruction. I'm talking about in the 80s. Israel bombed that facility. Before they bombed the facility, Jonathan Pollard got a tip that that's what they're doing, and they said, I think this is something we should alert Israel to. And the guy told him, nah, you know how sensitive the Israel is to gas. And
do you think that's the information that he was stealing and selling to them and other countries as well? It doesn't seem like that was the case.
I'm just saying what the excuse he gave.
Of course he's going to give like a sort of nationalist, like, oh, Israel was going to be attacked and destroyed. Like that's his defense, but that wasn't actually really the truth.
We were doing so well till now. Now you're pushing me to against the wall.
I think.
Welcome to the show, everybody.
Listen, I think it should be easy to stand against someone who engaged in espionage against the United States and selling our military secrets to a foreign country.
Yeah, so that's the thing. This is why it's.
You don't think he should be in prison?
He was in prison.
I know, but you don't think he should be still in prison. I know he was released, but I think he should still be in prison, but you don't believe that.
Well, then put all the guys who spied on America. We used to give the death penalty for espionage. And again, there's people from Saudi Arabia, there's people, spies from all over the place that only served 3 years. He served 27 years.
I agree. I agree on that. Yeah.
Okay.
But you don't agree on Jonathan Pollard?
Again, I want to be consistent here. If he goes to prison, then everyone goes back to prison. Let's be consistent.
But you wouldn't advocate for him to go back to prison.
I mean, he's already been released. If he was in jail, I would probably say let him stay there. But he's already been released. What's the point of going back?
What do you think about the Politico reporting that shows that Israel had spy devices outside the White House and spying on President Trump?
Has it been confirmed?
It's been reported by Politico and many people in the intelligence agencies.
If that has happened, that is a damn shame, because why the hell would you need to spy on a president that's so pro-Israel?
Well, they've done it on Clinton, too, for example.
But let me tell you something. Do you think America doesn't spy on other countries?
Sure.
Including allies.
But listen, here's the thing. That's why I was talking about the conflict. Because I would say if America spies on other countries, good. We're Americans. We want all the intel. I would understand if people in Israel say, good, we're Israel. We should spy on all these countries. For sure. That's like their nationalist position. But when you have that identity of being an American and also pro-Israel, I feel like that's where it conflicts.
Again, it only conflicts every once in a while, and Jonathan Pollard is probably a good example of that. But we are kind of like an outpost in the Middle East. If you look at all the countries in the Middle East, they don't really resemble America the way Israel does. You have celebrities coming to Israel. You have your rock stars, like Bob Dylan performed in Israel.
You got rock stars going to Dubai and stuff too.
You know what? You're absolutely right. The Gulf countries have kind of carved out a little niche for themselves. We're Middle East, but not that Middle East. Not the Allahu Akbar blow me up in Middle East. It's a kind of different Middle East because they got a lot of oil, and Syria, just to the dumb luck, doesn't have a lot of oil. And Jordan doesn't have a lot of oil. And again, the Middle East is such a complicated, nuanced place. Listen, you talk about nuance. I mean,
talk about nuance.
Talk about nuance, little boys and girls. So yeah, we have monarchs, we have despots, we have Israel, and then we have terrorist groups, and we have the Middle East has got them all.
Well, what about when they sell our military secrets to places like China, which we have arms embargoes with? Is that something you think is a good idea?
I feel it's absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. This is how you pay America for giving you technology.
So why should we pay them $3.8 billion a year when, hold on, we pay them $3.8 billion a year when they have a lower debt to GDP ratio than the United States? They already have...
End all that.
So you support ending aid to Israel?
All countries. No.
I love it. Well, this is fantastic.
All countries, no way. And you want something? And it's Israel's interest. Forget about the other countries. Let's just say just Israel. It would be worth it for Israel because then they'll have a free hand to operate how they feel they need to operate, if you know what I mean. Because, you know something?
Well, I feel like they already feel like they have free license with Trump in office.
But can you imagine if they're not beholden to American money, how they would operate and how great Israel would get?
I don't know about that, but so I'm happy.
Let me ask you something.
What?
6 Day War, we had zero aid from America, zero. And somehow Israel was able to win a 6 Day War on an unprecedented
and kill Americans as well.
USS Liberty. Oh, that's a touchy subject.
It's a touchy subject.
And I'm trying to Google and find more information. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of information because there has been a lot of cover-ups. And let me tell you something. There was this one nationalist that told me, you know what? They were an absorber. He puts quotation marks, absorbing the situation, and they claim that the Israelis got a tip. It sounds like almost the Jonathan Pollard excuse. They got a tip that some information they're sending to Nasser in Egypt. So they were here to send the message to America and blah 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 blah. Nothing justifies that. And honestly, all the redacted documents about the USS Liberty, I believe, should be. Look, I'm going to get a lot of trouble with this interview because I'm not.
I thought you might be right.
I'm not taking this straight line. And by the way, just so you understand, this is a whole between backdrop, but I in no way what I say in.
Or just personal beliefs.
My personal belief. It's not nothing to do with the organization. The organization will probably disagree with a couple of stuff I said, and it might get me trouble.
So last question then, because I'm actually surprised at some of the positions that you did take on some of these things, which I appreciate.
Well, we're nuanced here.
Absolutely. That's why we have these conversations. Last one, anti-BDS legislation. So we have a First Amendment.
Unconstitutional. I hate the BDS.
I love this guy.
Unconstitutional.
Well, I think you said it right there. That's pretty awesome. So I appreciate the interview. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I like to say God is great, God is good, life in the hood is good.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so we found another fellow YouTuber here, Mr. John Doyle. How you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. So why are we out here today?
We're out here to see Donald Trump give a speech at CPAC last year. I think he gave a pretty optimistic speech about the state of the country with the economy and immigration. He had that executive order about free speech on college campuses. We haven't really seen too much action with that yet, but maybe he'll address it again. I think 50% of the people here are college age or younger, so maybe we can chance and get that going again or something.
Yeah, I asked about that recently on a panel to somebody. I haven't seen any action on it, but you're a big supporter of the president?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So why is that?
Well, mainly the America First aspect of it. I like that, he's unapologetically bringing back this sort of nationalist strain. A lot of people in Congress or within the Republican Party pretend to be America First, but when you actually look at the policies which they're voting in favor of, it doesn't actually put the American people first. So, he ran on a platform of we're going to have Americanism, not globalism. It will be our credo. And I think that this country has always been, a sort of nationalist America First country. And so I think that's why the people are supporting him. That's why I support him.
So he definitely talks a big game. He says a lot of those kind of things, nationalist spirit and all that. But what have you seen really in action that's put that America First policy into action?
That's the problem. He has brought back some manufacturing jobs, and he's talked a lot about it, but he's actually working against people within his own party that are in opposition to his agenda. So a lot of times I think that he doesn't really take that into account, or he hasn't been as effective strategically, which is unfortunately why a lot of the things that he has gotten done as far as his accomplishments have been through executive action. He hasn't really done too much legislatively, like through Congress. So if a Democrat gets in office, they could just undo that within a few weeks, unfortunately.
Sure. But some of the things he has done, through the legislature and cutting taxes and things like that, he's also, the First Step Act and things like that. Do you think like those are really like America First policies?
I think the tax cuts are. I think the average family making like $77,000 a year has gotten like a tax cut of like upwards of $2,000. So yeah, I think that putting more of their money back into the pockets of American families would be like an America First policy.
What about the First Step Act?
I don't know too much about that, so I can't really. That was the one about releasing prisoners. Yeah. So I don't know if I want to comment on that one. It's controversial.
Sure. But then also, when it comes to his executive actions, he's done a lot of things. It seems like for Israel, or he's even in America, a lot of things for Israel, where he's talked about like anti-Semitism in schools and things like that. Why are you laughing? No. So it seems like he's done a lot of that. Also, he seems to ally himself, with countries like that, and also Saudi Arabia as well. What are your thoughts on that?
I disagree with a lot of that. With any sort of foreign aid or any like putting other countries' interests before our own. It doesn't matter which country. Doesn't matter which country. I can't say I'm in support of it. All across the board, not discriminating on any particular countries. They're all our greatest ally.
But obviously, like Saudi Arabia, they're responsible for spreading like Wahhabism around the world, and we seem to support them, even though that's the ideology that Al Qaeda, ISIS, those are the ones who attack us, and that's when we talk about Islam, people like to talk about Islam, but it's really Wahhabism, and they're the ones who sponsor it along with the Qataris.
Yeah.
Why are we, like for example, the travel ban, that people call it a Muslim ban, they're not banning like the Saudis and the Qataris and their Wahhabist sect and all that stuff, but they're banning countries like Iran, which have never actually really attacked Americans on American soil. So does that really make sense to you?
No, not really. I think, unfortunately, with Trump, a lot of what it comes down to is his judgment. I don't think that he's familiar with the geopolitical issues or anything like that. I think that he has people working within his administration that sort of tell him things, and he sort of thinks about it. And I think, unfortunately, his administration has been infiltrated by a lot of people that aren't necessarily in favor of his agenda and like what he actually ran on, which is why we're seeing stuff like that. So,
who are the top three people you think he should kick out of his administration right now?
Right now, I don't know.
Mulvaney?
We got
Pompeo.
Yeah, I don't know about Pompeo, but we got both.
You like Pompeo?
I'm neutral about Pompeo, I guess. What do you not like about Pompeo?
I think he's a war hawk. I think he likes to put certain countries' interests above American interests, maybe.
Did you think Rex Tillerson was better?
No.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know.
So they just ran a background check on me. We'll see if we get the go-ahead.
It'll be good. It is. Sure.
Oh, yeah. Maybe you don't know me, you know who I am. So. I got to my dad. I take after him.
So he's checking out my YouTube channel right now, actually.
I'll do a couple minutes.
Sure. Cool. So we've been approved. Let's do it. So Mr. Gorko, we're out here at CPAC today. Why are you out here?
Why? Because I have a national radio show, and I broadcast from Radio Row 3 hours a day, today and tomorrow. And because before the president gets here on Saturday, I have the honor of addressing everybody at CPAC Saturday morning.
Sure.
So the First Amendment is something we all obviously cherish. A lot of times we're seeing in the modern day, a lot of these voices are trying to be suppressed. Even sometimes by the right, sometimes by the left. A lot of times by the left, a lot more. But
mostly,
yeah, sure. So, do you believe this First Amendment is something that we really need to protect right now? And how do you feel like we can really defend that in the modern day?
Oh, absolutely. If you look at the fact that these platforms that through their lobbyists manage to carve out an exemption for themselves as non-publishers, I mean the social media platforms like Twitter, like Facebook, like Instagram, are not liable for anything that happens on their platforms, but think that they get to police the First Amendment rights of Americans by shadow banning, by suspending, or by giving only the vaunted blue check mark to their buddies. Oh, absolutely. The First Amendment is under assault in ways that we haven't seen in generations in America.
Sure. And historically, this country was founded on First Amendment values like the boycott of the tea. When this country was founded, we had the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott, I'm sure, as you know. What do you think about legislation that's been passed in many states, like these 28 states, and even on the national level, they're trying to pass a lot of these anti-BDS laws that violate the First Amendment. In Florida, for example, the courts have said recently that this is anti-First Amendment, even though they've been passing, boycott, divestment, sanction stuff. What do you think about those anti-BDS laws?
So I approach the BDS question as not fundamentally an issue of First Amendment. That's a smokescreen. This is the modern form of anti-Semitism. If you understand the BDS movement's origins and what it's really about, it is a movement to deny the legitimacy of the modern Israeli state. And as such, it is absolutely reprehensible that we have leading lights of the Democrat Party, such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who are proud supporters of the BDS movement. This is just anti-Semitism under a new cloak. So no, anybody who talks about First Amendment rights, it's a smokescreen. This is the new form of anti-Semitism and needs to be recognized as such and rejected by all decent Americans of any religion.
Sure. So you agree with the left when they say hate speech is not free speech?
No. So
anti-Semitism not protected
You're
speech?
trying to be very smart here. You're trying to box me into a corner, but you won't be able to do that.
Sure.
Okay, my first major was philosophy and theology, and I have a PhD in political science. So try as much as you will. This isn't about the First Amendment. It's about anti-Semitism. Hate speech.
That's not protected first speech to be anti-Semitic?
Let me finish. I'm talking about an ideology, okay? I'm talking about an ideology that resulted in the deaths of 6 million Jews in World War II. And we will never allow that to happen again. If you're a Jew, a Christian, or an atheist, I don't care. We will not allow that to happen again. What I'm talking about is the fact that this is not a First Amendment issue.
How so,
It's a deadly ideology. It's a deadly ideology. It is anti-Semitism, it is fascistic, and we reject it. Hate speech, the other cloak of hate speech, is speech that I disagree with. I reject the term hate speech. I think it's an oxymoron. It's absurd. Hate speech is another level, another weapon, another cudgel of the left that they think they can use to silence those they disagree with. And let's be, if you want to get really technical here, First Amendment rights, to use the vaunted shouting fire in a crowded theater, First Amendment rights aren't absolute. Rights aren't absolute.
It protects you being racist, right? And buying products that you want to buy.
Yeah, but it doesn't protect you from being covered in the veneer of a decency when in fact you're a Jew-hating anti-Semite. Let's just call these things out for what they are. What we're talking about is misrepresentation. It's about the left being the most racist, centralized form of institutional hatred in America today. How is it that if you want to find public figures who are anti-Semites in Congress, you're going to find them only amongst the Democrats? How is it that Rashida Tlaib, in her first day in Congress, in her official office, goes to the global map and sticks a post-it note over Israel and says Palestine? That's what we reject. That's
not protected speech, what she did? You don't think that?
You're trying to be smart, but you're failing. Okay?
I'm trying to ask.
No. We reject the ideology that these people represent.
Well, you're putting it into legislation, though, that actually infringes on their rights.
Anything in
No, but you're saying you support that legislation, yes or no?
I'm not. Did I say that?
So
Did I say that? Did I say that?
But you're speaking against
Did
it.
I
though.
say
You're
that?
speaking against my characterization.
I'm talking
of it.
no.
Do you support it or not?
I'm talking about misrepresenting an ideological threat that has cost the lives of millions as a First Amendment issue.
Well, then
it's just wrong.
Do you support anti-BDS legislation then?
No, I want to see.
No, you don't?
I want to see the BDS recognized for what it is.
But can you answer the question, do you support anti-BDS legislation like the 28 states have
I would
passed?
like to see legislation that recognizes the BDS movement for modern anti-Semitism.
Okay, but do you support the current anti-BDS legislation?
See exactly what it
Sure.
says. If it is limiting general right to speech, no.
Okay, because right now people they've turned away disaster relief, federal disaster relief from people who wouldn't sign a pledge to not
the
buy
BDS
certain.
is modern anti-Semitism, and that's my issue. So end of story.
You're okay with people being denied disaster relief if they wouldn't sign a pledge?
I'd have to see.
That happened in the state of Texas.
I'd have to see the papers. I'd have to see how the legislation actually resulted in that.
Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Social media links are in the description box below, as well as merch. And I'll see you next time, bro.